Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to show 3 of the Who's On First show here on YouTube. I previously had done the top 10 third baseman and shortstop. Um, Today, I took a break yesterday. I just had too much, going on with school and whatnot. I'm back today to do the second baseman of baseball. And I think this list is one of the tougher ones out there, mainly because of the fact that the production level is is magnified differently at second. You're not going to see a guy hitting 20 something bombs. I look at the list I compiled. Not a single person hit, one person, excuse me, one person hit 20 home runs. So, it's not a power position. It's more, all right, is this person going to be able to play a good second base, drive in some runs, and get on base? That's more or less what second base is now in baseball. So, without further ado, let's get started on the list. Number 10. Me and my buddy, when we were compiling this list, if you watch the other two videos, you'll know that I give a little bit of leniency to somebody who had a down year. And this guy is no exception. I went with Brendan Phillips of the Cincinnati Reds. Now, I know a lot of people are like, well, this guy didn't do good, or he doesn't reach top tens and other whatever. Bottom line, Brendan Phillips is an amazing gloveman at second base. I know the metrics don't prove it and whatever, but if you put Brendan Phillips on the field 160 games a year, you know what you're getting at second defensively. He's going to hit you about, 8 to 20, maybe 15, 20 bombs a year, maybe. He's going to drive in some runs, and he's going to get on base. To me, that's perfectly a top 10 second baseman in baseball. I don't see where people can say, well, he's not, but he is. I don't really understand how people can pull Brendan Phillips so far down, even though he's been, exact same player for X amount of years. I just can't see it, but that's just me. I personally love Brendan Phillips, but I try not to be biased, as you know. Number 9, a guy who actually has been traded this offseason, super utility man. I like to call him Ben Zobrist. This guy, I think, is more. I think people overvalue him to an extent. I mean, people say like, "Oh, Ben Zobrist should be a top 5 second baseman." I don't think so. I think he barely reached the top 10. I mean, he's not a guy where I'm like, well, he's going to be, a guy who's going to play every position. I don't look at that. I don't think, to me, when I'm predicting the top second baseman, I don't say like, well, this guy can play other positions, so he should be high. No, that's not a top 10 second baseman. Top 10 second baseman should be a guy who legitimately only plays second base. So, to me, that's where, he should fit. And, his stats, are solid. 272, 10 bombs, 52 RBIs. I'll take that, And he barely beats Phillips. And the only reason why he beats Phillips is because he plays more games and he has more production. That's it. At number 8. Now, when I initially made this list, I had D. Gordon. But I don't know if he's playing short or second. So I couldn't put him in a top 10 because I don't know what position he's going to play. I'm assuming he'll play second. So if he's playing second, I'm going to do another thing that people don't like is I'm going to tie him with Jason Kipnis of the Cleveland Indians. Both guys, both have the same, or not the same, but Kipnis is a speed and power guy. Gordon's a fielding and glove guy. I put these two mainly together because I couldn't put them any higher. I tried to put Kipnis higher at maybe 6 or 7. I couldn't do it. Gordon, I couldn't put him higher. I mean, Gordon will steal, 60 to 70 bases, and I love that. I love that in a player. But, when you look at the rest of the work of the people in this list, those two guys shouldn't be any higher. I'm sorry. If people disagree, well, that's the point. But, and when you look at, Gordon has, the third best or fourth best average on this list. So, I'm not burying him in a way where he's like, well, his average isn't good. I just don't like the fact that all he can do is steal. I know that's a big part of the game, and I understand that. But at the same time, you need a guy who's also going to be like, he doesn't, if when he gets on base, he will steal, 60, 70 bases, but he doesn't score as many runs as some other people. And if you're on base, you should be scoring more runs. And I know that's not something that's on him personally, but if when he's going to Miami, what's his production going to be like now in Miami? Home run total is going to go to zip or zero. So, in my opinion, he can't be any higher in Kipnis. I want to put him higher, I do, but I want to see a full thing. I want to see what he can really do. And he keeps every year, this year he decreased a little bit, so I had to move him lower. It's that simple. Moving on to number 7. The oldest man on this list is Chase Utley. Chase Utley came back this year, or last year, and really became kind of the old Chase Utley again, oddly enough. Played 155 games, which is one of the most rarest things for him. And he contributed 11 bombs, 78 RBIs, 10 stolen bases. Solid, I mean, don't get me wrong, he's hitting that age where the decline is coming and it's going to hit hard. And he's going to be a guy where next year you most likely will not see him in my top 10 because he's not going to do that again this year, especially on that team. He's a solid player. He's been solid his whole career. But this is probably my last year putting him in my top 10. And unless he proves me wrong, which, you know what, Chase? I hope you do. I hope you do, because I would love to have you in the top 10 and, be proven wrong, because I love being proven wrong by a player. Not by other viewers, but by players. Moving on to number 6. Number 6, I hated to put this guy this low because I know what he brings. I watch him every single game, is Dustin Pedroia. A couple years ago, I remember a time when it was Robinson Cano and Dustin Pedroia were always 1-2, 1-2, 1-2. And now, Pedroia is not even in the top 5 second baseman, in my opinion. His numbers are really hitting a weird drop. I mean, he's not hitting anything out anymore. His home run total dropped so far. He only hit 7 home runs last year. He was a guy that was hitting 18 to 25 before. He doesn't really steal as much as he was, and he only hit 278. When you look at the rest of this list, he's not any better than other. Chase Utley almost pretty much had a better year, but I had to put Pedroia higher because Pedroia, actually has the upside that Utley doesn't. Now, granted, PD only played in 135 games. He had that injury. So if he can come back, give the Sox 150 to 160 games, we could be talking a top 5 second baseman again, maybe even top 30. But at the same time, it's what are we going to get from Pedroia this year? I mean, I know he was hurt. I know he gets hurt opening day every year and plays through it. I want to see a healthy Dustin Pedroia again, and I want to see what happens at the end of the year, what he gives the Red Sox. The power numbers don't have to be out of this world, but you got to improve. That's the way I see it. Moving on to the top 5 of the second base. And this guy only played 2 more games than Pedroia, but his production was a lot higher. And that is the Pittsburgh Pirates second baseman, Neil Walker. Neil Walker is a guy who, he's probably the most powerful second baseman in baseball, with 23 bombs and 76 RBIs. That's unbelievable for a second baseman, where power is not usually seen. He only hit 271, but he had an on base at 341, and he has the second highest OPS or third highest OPS on this list. So, Neil Walker to me is at the point now where he is top 5, and he barely doesn't make 4 because of his body of work. If he played a full year and 150, 160 games, we could be talking top 3 second baseman. And I don't mind that. I think people overlook Neil Walker. I don't know why. I don't see a reason why you can overlook this guy. Same thing with his partner, Jody Mercer. I don't see how you can look over both of them. I mean, Neil Walker's been doing this for a couple of years now, so I don't see how anybody could not put him in their top 5. I mean, I don't look at the wars and all that nonsense, because that's not what I'm about. I'm about a fan who sees the game and sees what these guys do and sees the impact. I don't need to look at the advanced metrics to see what they do. So when Neil Walker's in that line, that team is that team's a house. You have Alvarez, him, Kutch, Marte, Polanco. And now with losing Russell Martin, Neil Walker's going to step up a little bit in stats, which, I'm sure he'd be fine with. He just has to get the on base up a little bit. So, I mean, he is one of the best on bases on here anyway. But if he gets closer to 400 on base, definitely a top 3. So, moving on to number 4. This guy has been traded this year. Very big topic for a lot of players. And that is the former LA Angels second baseman, now the LA Dodgers second baseman, Howie Kendrick. Kendrick, one of the most durable guys in baseball. 157 again this year. 7 homers, 75 RBIs. Solid. 293. Third best average on the list. Can't overlook that. And Kendrick's one of those guys that's very highly underrated in my opinion. Not many people really, give him the credit that he is due. And when he was with the Angels, I understand. He gets lost in the shuffle with Dave Pujols, Hamilton, Trout, insert other players, I understand how he gets overlooked. But the guy is a solid defender and a solid offensive player. I don't, and he does it every year. I don't see how he can keep getting overlooked. With the Dodgers, I think he will be better. I think he will get on base a little more, and I think he will score a little more. Because, again, he's going to a lineup where he's not going to be looked at as a threat, and that's a bad thing because, for other teams, of course, because he's going to get his due, and that's just how he's been able to have a successful career. Almost hitting 300. I'll take that from a second baseman any day of the week. So I mean, Howie Kendrick is another guy where you're like, well, he barely missed my top 3. Barely. And the only reason why the guy at 3 beat him, was because of the overall production that he gives, and I'll explain that in a second. But with Howie Kendrick, bottom line, top 5 second baseman, borderline all-star every year, should be. That's a whole different video. And, if he gets his strikeouts down, he's the worst one on this list with strikeouts. That's my only down thing with him, is if he can get his strikeouts down to, the 70, 60, 70 range, maybe even 80. I think 80 I could live with. If he gets down to the 80 range with strikeouts, he will be an all-star every year. That's my opinion. Moving on to the top 3 second basemen. If you guys realize at this point, well, here's the best 3 second basemen in my opinion in baseball. 1 and 2, I think everybody kind of has the same, but we'll see. So number 3 is now of the Detroit Tigers, Ian Kinsler. Ian Kinsler is the most productive run scorer in this list. He had 92 RBIs and 15 stolen bases, 40 runs, 17 home runs. Or it can't be 40 runs, 100 something runs. So when a guy like him, I think he's the type of guy where he is in the right spot now. When he was at Texas, you could see like at the end of it, he was like, his stats were starting to flourish. He goes to Detroit, which I don't think is as homer friendly as Texas. Has the same type of stats, and every year he's where he's always at. He's always in the top 5 all-star, and he's always he's right there. And every team he's on, they're successful. And I know that's not just on him. I know that's on the other players, but you can't argue with a guy that helps bring success. That's just the way I see that. And Ian Kinsler is another guy too, where he plays every day. And I look at that and I see that. That doesn't take a metric to see that. So that's how I feel on Ian Kinsler and why he's higher than Kendrick or Walker. Moving on to number 2. A guy who short in stature and powerful bat, well, not really powerful, but you know what I mean. And a big contact bat, hitting 341. I'm talking about the shortest guy, Jose Altuve. Jose Altuve, you knew where he was in this list. You knew he wouldn't be number 1. He exploded this year. I will be very disappointed if next year he's not the same guy. But if he hits like this again, Cano is in trouble. I'll tell you that. I mean, Cano isn't going anywhere, in opinion, but if Altuve keeps winning batting titles, it's hard to not put him at number 1. Let's be honest, Batting titles are a big deal, in my opinion. If this guy can continue this type of stuff and stat-wise and production, why not give him and Cano a big run at 1-2? It's all about competition, and I think that's a big thing. The one thing with him that I think doesn't that hurts him is his team isn't good yet. That's the reason why I think he's kind of hurting. Is his team's not good yet, and his team isn't being built yet the way that a Robinson Cano is. So when that day comes and Houston's good, Jose Altuve will get more credit and he will be built up more. So that's my opinion with Altuve. Now the guy I mentioned before, number one every year, Robinson Cano. Don't you know? What can you say about Cano? He left New York. Everybody was like, well, he's not going to do as well in Seattle. About the same stats. His home run totals were going to go down. Everybody knew that. 314 average, though. That didn't go down, did it? On base, didn't go down. And slugging, yeah, it went down a little, but it wasn't a big drop. Hits were still there. On base was still there. Doubles were still there. This guy's a machine at second base. He is the best second baseman in baseball, and there's no doubt about it. And it's not really, as much as I was trying to argue with Altuve, it's not really that close between Cano and Altuve. And as much as people try to, he's not. Cano is a much better defender, and he is a presence in the lineup. Altuve is a bat. Cano is a presence. There's a difference. When Cano's in the lineup, you know that you have to worry about him. With Altuve, he may get his hits, he may get on base. He will not hit home runs very much. Cano will. So that's the way I see it with the top 10 with second base. Cano obviously will lead my list. I'm sure he will lead a lot of other lists, and I'm sure he will lead the one on MLB Network. That's probably coming out at some point this week. But yeah, this concludes the second or the third episode on Second Baseman on the Who's on First show here on YouTube. And if you like the other two and you like this one, well, there's going to be another one tomorrow, and it's going to be about first base. Very powerful position. And I'm sure, there's going to be a lot of controversy with that top 10. Controversy is a good thing. I flourish on it. So, but yeah, if you like the video, make sure you like and comment below on maybe your top 10. And I'll gladly listen to it and reply to it. And see you next time, and make sure you subscribe.